welcome everybody. This should be the first episode of the Laurie and Tall Paul show. We thank you for listening, and we'd love to hear what you guys think. Uh, One of the things that I wanted to start out with, and I already talked to Paul about this a little bit, is I wanted to say like how we got connected and how this podcast came to life, and it was through LinkedIn, which is a tool that I absolutely believe in. But what I love most about how Paul and I connected was that it was through networking, of course, right? Reading a like-minded article, if you will, like my newsletter. He read my newsletter, but it was about having the same values, I think, right? Certain things resonated, that
Hmm.
I was talking about that Paul felt, I guess, or we had in common. And so we reach out to each other, and then this just sort of happened. So I'm excited for it. I'm, looking forward to what is next. So
Well,
Paul,
if I can add to that real quick,
yes,
the way it came about was we were talking to each other. We set up a meeting, talked to each other about a separate topic. And then at the end of the meeting, you said, my kids keep telling me I should do video instead
yes,
of the newsletters.
yes.
And I was like, yeah, for years I've been telling myself, do video, get into video. And then I was like, well, let's just do it. Let's stop with all the excuses and let's be each other's, catalyst
Yep.
and let's get it done. And so here we are.
Yes. And what I love about that, and I hope the people that listen to us, watch us, listen to us, will love about that is that you can start anything. You just got to get over that hump of either being afraid, being
Mhm.
hesitant, wanting everything to be perfect before you go at it. So here's our first go.
That's right. Let's do it.
Okay.
We got
So
this.
yes, we got this. So we're going to talk a little bit about change today to kind of go along with that theme, right? Change is scary, growing is scary. You know that you want to do it or should do it, but it's like, what do I do now, right? Or how do I
Mhm.
go about that?
Mhm.
And one of the things from my newsletter, Paul, that you specifically called out was what part of me is ready to grow, even
Mhm.
if the path isn't clear yet? Like you
Oh man.
brought that up right on
Sure.
LinkedIn, and it seemed to resonate. And I want to know why. Why did that resonate with you?
Just you saying that right now hits me deep in the feels again. um, because sometimes you hear these phrases and you're like, gosh, that defines my life. Like that's it right there. That kind of describes me. And so when I read that phrase in your newsletter, that's what I felt is like that encapsulates what my life has been like up until this point and probably always will be, right? Um, and I think not a lot of people. So being comfortable, kind of jumping into something before you're ready, is not something everybody is comfortable with, right? Not everybody's kind of built that way. Where I work right now, we just recently did a personality test, and some of my top three traits were positivity, learning, and strategy, right? And those three things kind of fit in with this concept of jumping before you really understand everything about what you're jumping into. Just because being a learner, you want to grow, right? That's kind of a natural part of who I am is I want to constantly grow. I want to constantly learn new things. And so I'm willing to take a step into the dark, just to see what's there and to see what challenges it brings or what successes I can have and um, see if it's the right move or not. Right. And we can always adjust. If it's not the right move, we can always adjust.
You're right. And I,
Sometimes.
I, I like how you said that about stepping into the dark, right?
Mhm.
Because sometimes you bump into things in the
Mhm.
dark, right? Or maybe you open one door and it's not the right door. Like maybe you're looking for the bathroom and you open the closet door instead. Like I think that's a very good analogy to use for the space, right? Ready to grow, but not knowing where the path is, because you
Mhm.
may have to open several doors, right? Or you
Yeah.
may hit a wall and have to turn
Mhm.
in a different direction,
and
particularly in the
and
dark.
that's okay. And you know
Yes,
what, that happens, like, people sometimes can be afraid of that because of the idea of failure, but that same thing happens whether you have success or failure. So it doesn't really matter. You might as well just jump into it, right? Just give it a shot and give it a go, because you're going to experience the same kind of this is obstacles to everything, whether it leads to success or failure. And so just give it a go, right? You'll figure it out on the way.
And you touched on another topic that we will probably explore more of, right? Failure, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like people are afraid to fail, but we have someone in common, Erin Ramirez, right? And I'm going to
Yeah.
bring up her name
Mm-hmm.
because she shared with me that, one of the things that she tries to do is fail early, right? Or fail often. And that's the thing that she tries to teach, others around her. And I have taken that. And it sounds like you have also taken something similar. Like it's okay to fail, right? And you
Mm-hmm.
have to fail in order to succeed, right? You
Yeah.
have to have that failure in order to measure that success,
In order for success to mean anything, right?
right?
And
Yes.
one of the greatest things I ever heard one time was we fail way more often than we succeed. We fail to wake up on time. We fail to get to work on time. We fail to call somebody, or we fail that, like there's a ton of failures that add up in our day that we don't think of as failures.
We failed to show up on time.
On time for a podcast. Yeah, right. Yeah.
Right?
You know,
Who did that?
so it happens way more often. And so we are actually more comfortable with it than we realize because it happens all the time.
I love that. Yeah. And that's a topic we definitely have to explore
Mhm.
again, in another podcast. So I want to go back to, that earlier question, right? And how it resonated or why it resonated with you. And now I want you to tell me about a time, about a change. So can you share an example of a change that you navigated and what part of that process was challenging for you?
Yeah. All right, Laurie, about to learn something deep about me.
Okay. Okay.
Okay, so the biggest change in my life, and I'm so not trying to bring the podcast down or anything, but the biggest change in my life came when so I have two older sisters, and my oldest sister Terry, she lived in Michigan, um, addict, a lot of problems, um, married, two kids, and apparently they were having some issues with drug dealer demanding money. So my brother-in-law decides that the best way out of this is to commit suicide. So he goes down to the basement of the house and shoots himself. 18 months later, my sister is supposed, it's a Thursday. My sister is supposed to move back to Illinois. My mom finally convinces her, look, come back to family. It's safer here. We can help you. The Thursday before she's supposed to move back, um, she ends up in the parking lot of an apartment complex on 7 Mile Road. Eminem, he talks about the,
Oh, I
8 miles.
know exactly where it is. 7 Mile.
Yeah.
Yep, I know
Okay.
exactly.
And apparently she was going there to try to pay off a drug dealer that she was still involved with. And that guy shot her in the neck, and she died in the car and left her two kids behind. So my mom gets a phone call, the tragic news. But then on top of it, she's told family needs to get here within 24 hours or the kids are going into state custody. So me, my mom, my aunt, we all fly out there right away and bring the kids back. So now my niece was 7, my nephew was 5 at the time. And so we bring them back here. At that point, you know, I had that's what changed my life, right? So I was just your average, 20 something guy, just kind of living life, living with some friends and yada yada. And then at that point I was like, well, I can't let my mom, who at the time she wasn't old, but at the time I was kind of like it's like
I
she's
know
too
what
old
you
for this.
mean. You're like, okay,
You
she
know,
was my age. She was younger.
she was my age now, probably. But I was like, I can't let my mom take this on all by herself. So I moved in with my mom. And then shortly after that, then I met my wife. We get married, and then we become legal guardians of my niece and nephew. So anyway, so that would be, there's a whole lot more to that story we don't have time for, but that's the kind of end of where I'll go here. So anyway, so that would be a time in my life when I jumped into something having no idea what I was doing, no clue what the future would hold or what kind of impact I could possibly have there, and how it would change me or my life or the people around me. Um, and it was very, very difficult from that point forward. I can't say that there were a ton of successes that came from that, unfortunately, but um, that's what prepared me to be a great father to my kids now. Without that experience, I wouldn't have known. I still would have been ignorant, right, about how kids are and really like how to
Right,
raise them. And
right.
so I think that's like ultimately the lesson, I guess, is it prepared me for my kids now. Um, and that was a very difficult change. Uh, Being 20 some years old. Well, I guess at that point I was 30, and and then suddenly you're supposed to be a parent.
Well, and so the change that you shared, many of us don't think about it this way, but the change that you shared was your sister dying, then you're
Mm-hmm.
losing a sibling, right? Regardless of relationship, right? You're losing a sibling, you're becoming a father,
Mm-hmm.
right? A parent to children you were not expecting to be children to, and then you got married somewhere in that scheme. So
Right.
those are three things that were changes, right? So that's
Yeah.
a whole lot of change, and I like that story. I know we don't want to, take up too much time here, but I really like that story because that's what I want to talk about, right? Change is everywhere. Change
Mm-hmm.
isn't just I changed my hair color or my hairstyle or I changed my job, right? It's really present in our lives. And it could be large change, really big change like that takes years to really get through, right?
Yeah.
To
Mm-hmm.
really settle through and get through it, or it could be something smaller. But I want this to be a space where people hear the change could be anywhere and it definitely impacts you, right? And how you manage it and go about it determines, I guess, how you're going to move forward, right? But it's okay,
Yeah.
it's scary, but you can get through it, you know?
Yeah. And I think I had only known my wife. We only dated for 6 months before we got married. And so, um, but I think the two of us had the attitude of, and she jumped right in, right, with my niece and nephew. So there was no, not even a hesitation. She was a social worker. So that was kind of like
That worked out.
along the lines. Yeah. And anyway, so I think because we had the mindset of being flexible, being open to kind of the different twists and turns of what this might bring, knowing there's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. It's okay. We're going to try to stay level. Um, and the sea might get stormy, but if we stay in the center of the boat, you know, and we keep the sails up, then eventually we'll get through it.
Right. Yeah. Wow, that's a big, so those were some really big changes, but thank you for sharing,
Yeah.
Paul.
So let me ask you now. So this is a theme for you, not just in your life, but in your profession as well. So tell me, how did that all come about?
Wow. I'm going to try to not make this a really long story, but I'm going to start with career first, I think, because that's really where I started to see how change is the overall theme for everything, right? So in my own career, I started in IT. First, I was in the military. I was a
Mm-hmm.
single mom, right? I got out of the military and then my career was mostly IT driven. And while I was in IT, I recognized that I had a passion or a knack for like customer service. And I really cared more about that piece, right? So after 4 years or so, I shifted into a different space, right? To where I was more customer centered. And it was about the services that I brought to the different business units in our organization. So that was one change. And I now had to
Okay.
work at a different place, okay, a different spot. So I had to change how I worked with the people at my company. Then I moved on to a different type of role that was more focused on like training, right? Training other people, maybe developing other people. I moved into the space of being a team lead. That is also a change, right? Because you move from being the worker to leading other people. And that's a tough space to navigate, even
Yep.
if you think you know how to do it. right? Even if you
Right.
think you know how to do it. Like I'm a mom, right? I think I know how to lead people. It's totally different space,
Uh-huh.
right? When you have to lead other people, right? And
Especially
then
people you were coworkers with, like kind of
exactly. Yeah,
friendly level. Yeah.
that's a really difficult spot actually, and probably another topic
Yeah.
for our podcast. But what really moved me into this space was when I became a Scrum Master, and which is a way of working in teams, right? You mostly hear it in software development, right? Engineers use it a lot. It's how you develop software, but it can be used in any space, right? And what Scrum is, it's a framework of how you work together as a team. There's a lot of change with Scrum,
Hmm.
right? Because
Hmm.
your mindset has to change, like you shift how you think, how you see your team, how you work together. And as I got exposed to that, it moved me into a space of leadership coaching. So it sounds like I'm all over the place, but I was. I grew circularly, right? Like
Right.
full. And then when
Hmm.
I became in that space of change management and Scrum, that's when I became a coach for the entire organization. And what I recognized in all of these spaces was that everything was about change,
Hmm.
right? It was
Got it.
about introduction to something new in the organization. It was about a new program, right? Maybe it's even new team members coming on, right? Or it's a new product that you're supporting. But it's like every path that I've been in, there's change that's been involved,
Hmm.
right? And
Hmm.
when I left the corporate space to start my own business, that was a huge change for me, right? That's a entire career transition. And I recognized, okay, I just left my job at the best point of my career, right? I started my own business. I have no idea what I'm doing. It's scary, scary, exciting, but scary. I moved to a different state where I know nobody. I moved from Michigan
Uh-huh.
to Virginia. I know nobody, right? And then I left my oldest son behind in Michigan, which
Oh
you might be
man.
like, okay, but that for me was like, oh my God, I left
That'd
my
be
child,
tough.
back home.
Yeah.
So those were really large themes that stood out to me that I
Hmm.
was like, suffered or experienced change without really even thinking about that in the last several years, right? The move to another state, starting my own business, navigating that career change and even just family dynamic. And that's when I was like, everything evolves around change, revolves
Always.
around change,
Ever
right?
present. Ever present. Yep.
And I've noticed it's hard. And because
Hmm.
it's hard, people are scared. Change
Right.
is scary to people.
So let me ask you this. So in your coaching, how how do you convince people that they don't need to be afraid of change?
Wow, it's a powerful question. And I would say that's one of the ways that I do it. Like depending on the scenario, right? There is
Mhm.
no one size fits all, right? When you're coaching, you really have to listen to that person's story, but then it's more about what their goal is, right? What is it that they're looking for from the coaching experience? So now I primarily focus on that career transition space, right? Someone wants to move from one career to another, from one role to another. That's usually where I am, right? In that space. Some of it's a little bit leadership coaching, right? How can I be a better leader because I've just moved into this role or I'm now ready to do that growing that you mentioned earlier?
Mhm.
But how do I convince them? I would be honest with you. Like one of the ways that I do that is I show them what's the consequence if you don't. Right.
Okay.
I usually start with that question. What is the consequence if you don't do this change? What is the consequence if this doesn't happen? And based on how they answer, they usually discover it themselves, quite
Okay.
honestly. So I don't convince them
Right.
when I coach. I help them uncover why it makes sense to move forward,
Mm, nice.
right? Why it makes
Mhm.
sense to move forward. And we sort of get rid of the scary, but we talk about the scary, meaning that pit in your stomach and the turning, let's think about that. Almost anytime you have that, it is because you were about to do something big, right? And
Right.
instead
Uh-huh.
of having that scary, I'm scared feeling, how do we change that into, I feel this way because I'm excited about what I'm about to do.
Yeah.
That
Hmm.
that is something that I have tried to encourage my clients to turn it into a ball of excitement instead of
Excitement.
fear.
Yeah. I had heard somebody say that um the body's fight, flight, or what's the other one? Fight, flight, or freeze. And so of course, your brain is geared to keep you safe. And so when you're confronted with change and you get that feeling, you have to understand that that is a natural reaction of your brain. That's not necessarily the thing you should follow. It's just your brain giving its natural reaction to potential change and saying, this is not probably not good. That doesn't mean it's not good.
You're right. It's just, it's unknown. It's scary. It's something I haven't done before. And your brain knows that, right?
Yeah.
It's like
Mm-hmm.
unfamiliar. Like, right? What is this? I
Yeah.
like that you said that though, because it's true. And we have to, one, we have to learn how to tell the difference between both, obviously,
Mm-hmm.
right? But we need to use that as fuel sometimes when it's
Yeah.
scary,
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Understand. Okay. That's my brain trying to calculate forward. And because it can't see, because I haven't experienced this yet and it can't calculate forward the predictions, it's telling me not to do it, but that's all it is. That's it.
It's
And
still in
just
the dark.
move
Your
forward.
brain's still in the dark.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, just move forward, and your brain is also built to help you figure it out as you go.
Yes. No, I love that. I like that. And I think we should end there. I think we should kind of end that. And then our next session should be like, what are strategies? What are things that we've tried to move forward?
Okay, I like it.